Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Brandon, Carter, and Clem. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you may find yourself. Bit of a jam-packed day today with some news. We have Amorim updates. We have some updates on a potential signing that may be occurring, and we have updates in relation to some back office staff that will be taking place too. But before we get into that, there are some Premier League games on today, and if anybody's seen our Twitter earlier, we'll get into probably one of the most useless stats that I've ever tweeted in my life, is that if Wolves beat Burnley this evening, Liverpool will be guaranteed a top 10 finish for the 62nd consecutive season. The next closest team that has that many consecutive seasons is Manchester United with 33. So the last time Liverpool finished outside of the top 10 was 1962, or before 1962, actually. But that useless stat beside, it's been a busy enough news day. Liverpool's newest number one manager on their shortlist, Ruben Amorim, appears to be valued by Barcelona, that is. Not sure how much they can value him, considering they're selling their seats for some money. Never mind blades of grass, they'll be selling Messi's underwear next that they find down the back of the laundry basket. We have Pedro Marques, who is being appointed by FSG to oversee and help with the new club and the multi-club model that we're looking to go for. He is currently the technical director at Benfica, and he is very, very, very much lauded over his expertise. He's seen as a bit of a genius. Former Man City back office room staff and very, very highly regarded. We've also learned that Ruben Amorim has 2 release clauses. If he was to stay in Portugal, you'd have to pay £30 million, and if he's going outside of Portugal, you'd have to pay £20 million. It's seeming that the talking heads seem to think that Liverpool will probably pay about £15 million for him, but that remains to be seen at the moment. And then lastly, we have Luis Guilherme, who is a Brazilian player for Palmeiras in Brazil, who is seen as the next big export to come out of Brazil, who can play number 10 and who can play a wide forward. He'll be playing on the right-hand side, probably as a possible Mo Salah replacement or understudy. The kid's only 18, and Palmeiras will be asking for about £40 million for him. I've looked him up myself, and there's one particular stat that stood out to me that I'll share with everybody when we get to him. But he could be the Mo Salah replacement. He's the left footer and he can play outside or he can play the number 10 role. So depending on who we get and how we like to play, that could be very, very interesting going forward. But that's your quick recap on the news a little bit, but we start getting some opinions on it. The first thing that we move on to is Barcelona's interest in Ruben Amorim. And just actually, I'm after forgetting, before I get into it and I start asking questions, just make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really does help the channel, and we thank you so much for doing it. And make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos as well. So, Barcelona and Ruben Amorim. Brandon, I'll throw it over to yourself first. It's, as we said, Barcelona seem to be selling everything but Messi's dirty socks to try and save themselves some money, and they're already in talks of trying to keep Xavi there, never mind trying to move on to somebody else. Do you think there's much water behind or much weight behind these rumors that Barcelona are going to try and pay for that release clause of 20 odd million pounds for Ruben Amorim?
In a vacuum, I say, yeah, you can see there's weight to it. I mean, obviously being the nationality is, Barcelona would be a dream move for him, more than likely. I mean, everybody who's kind of hitting that manager age, kind of peak age, they grew up on the Messi teams. So, I mean, Barcelona kind of holds a special place in the heart. But behind the scenes, I don't see where this works because they have nothing, like no money. They have to get rid of players to bring him in. I don't think they have any interest in doing that, especially with the youngsters coming through. I think in a vacuum, the job is very something you would want. I mean, especially with the youngsters they have. I mean, it'd be a great thing to work, but they're running one of their greatest players out of the club after winning a title last year when they probably shouldn't have. And I don't know. I just don't see the stability there for anybody actually want to go there. But I thought Xavi was nailed on coming to us. So what do I actually know? I don't know. I think our job is much more. God, my mind is gone right now. It's much more of a better job to take. It's just a better job to take and grow into. It's just everything's set up there. Barcelona is moving through you 1 year, 2 years at a time. It's just, if you want to grow as a manager, Liverpool seems to be the better spot to go to right now.
Yeah, it seems like the longer project. I think Rigo mentioned it. One of the other hosts mentioned it in the chat earlier that Barcelona are just churning through managers. He'll be gone out of there in a year or two, just given the dire situation that they're in. Clem, realistically, their situation in Barcelona, you see everybody saying here, Paul saying can't afford it. Barcelona, Alan mentioning here, it's Barcelona club to pull in Amorim in front of Liverpool. And Jen here mentioning that Barca's a sinking ship and we will get our man. Are you much in the same camp as a lot of the comments coming in here, or are you of a different sentiment?
Yeah, much in the same camp. I think, obviously, with the precarious situation though with Xavi in at Barcelona, I don't know how much longer he's going to be there, but I can't really see this happening. I think it come out of left field, right as Liverpool's reported interest, has started to increase. We see this, a lot of that paper talk like we got with the Bayern reporter, Pleti goal or whatever he is. But I'll be surprised if Barcelona's forking out money for another manager in terms of the release clause. And as we're going to talk about later with this new technical signing, being Portuguese, that could be further hints as to we're getting close to our man.
Exactly. And I think that's a major signing, to be perfectly honest, with a technical director side of things. Carter, I'd imagine you're very much in the same camp as myself, Brandon, and Clem, in that it seems that Barca are just kind of piping up now, maybe testing the waters a little bit and thinking, oh, maybe he might come, and then they may have to back out at last minute. But realistically, I can't see how it is. Jay Muse here seems to be the pessimist of everybody, saying it's going to be De Zerbi, isn't it? And Jen, just want to say thank you as well for the £9.99. It really is very much appreciated, along with the 19 months of being a member. It is absolutely astonishing. Thank you so much, Jen, for that. It really is appreciated. Carter, to this comment of Jay Muse, do you think it's going to be De Zerbi? We kind of all just kind of sit here hoping it isn't going to be him and he lands in.
Well, for me, the idea of him's kind of grown on me a lot. Like, I know some people don't like him, but I almost think you'd be more likely to see him turn up at the Barcelona job. I think for Barcelona, the way he'll play, like a lot of the managers, like Xavi's not a typical Barcelona manager, like in the sort of ilk of previous managers. He's more like Valverde. He's more in that sort of, probably a bit more pragmatic than Luis Enrique. But I think someone like De Zerbi or Amorim, I think for both of us makes sense in some ways. Like, both expansive front foot pressing football, both are like willing to work with younger players. So I think it's kind of whoever gets left. If Barcelona manage to get Amorim, De Zerbi might shut up the list. I doubt it, but I think it really is. It's just sort of a load of dominoes at the moment going. And as soon as maybe Amorim goes, then the next domino is De Zerbi, and then maybe it's Tuchel, and then maybe if someone else gets sacked, it's just going to be very interesting. Like, I think it's one of the, for me as a football fan, this is like the biggest domino effect of managers I've ever seen.
Yeah, it is. It's very similar to us waiting for that Mbappe domino to fall the past couple of transfer windows. And Alan, realistically, what Bellingham was asking for was just hilarious money that nobody was going to pay other than Real Madrid. We may as well move on from that, and that's the piece that I've made. And his deal alone cost £500 million over 6 years. Good luck to that. I'm not paying any player that. No player is worth that, no matter how good you think he is. You're crippling your club to do that, and the only people that could afford to do that are Man City and Real Madrid. And you've seen what's happening with City with their 115 charges. And one person is, Jay Muse mentioned here, that not many want to follow the shadow of Klopp over them. Well, then I don't want them, to be perfectly honest with you. If they don't have the balls to come in here and try and put their own stamp on the team, don't come. It's that simple. If you're fearful of the fact of, like, we don't want to turn into a United where Alex Ferguson is looming over everything constantly. Look at the shambles that they're in. That's not the way I want things to be. Klopp will go. And when he does go, he will deserve his flowers and he'll get them. So build him a statue. I don't care. Second he's out the door, the keys get handed immediately over to the next manager, and they are given full control of, along with Edwards and Richard Hughes. It should not be similar to United, where he stays on an advisory role. Get him out the club. As hilarious as that sounds to say, he's done his time. He wants to go. Let him go. Leave him be. New manager time. New era. Let's move on with it. That's the way it has to be, in my own opinion. And as well, like Jen mentions here, no one will replace him. The new man will have to his own way of running things. Exactly. We don't want another Klopp. We'll be looking for decades before we get another one. There's no point. We will quite literally run ourselves into insanity trying to find another one. I'm just trying to look through some of the comments here, and this one back to Alan about how many first choices left. When have Liverpool really went for the first choice at the end of the day? And we're currently sat in the top of the Premier League, and we've been as successful as we have been. So we make stars, we don't buy them. That's the way that I look at it. I just kind of looked through the comments here and seeing if I can see anything else. Carter, I think you might have a friend here in Stuart. If Diaz goes at some point, is it just me or is the most obvious option Anthony Gordon? If we could get him out of Newcastle, of course. Carter has been slated left, right, and centre in the group chat all the time. He mentions that he'd love Anthony Gordon at Liverpool, and I have to disagree with him. I just can't see any man in an Everton uniform, other than maybe Jamie Carragher when he was younger, as a Liverpool player. I completely appreciate him as a player, Carter, but God, I'd hate to see that Sid the Sloth looking little fucker in a Liverpool jersey. I know you love him, but we'll go on that comment, because Diaz seems to be mentioning about leaving, that like his dad is trying to coax him over to Spain and go to a Spanish club. He seems to kind of hit a vein of form again, but realistically, he's 27. It may be time to move on from him a little bit, and that's not to say that he doesn't deserve to be here. But in my opinion, I think we have a perfect left winger there in Cody Gakpo. But Carter, I'll throw it over to you to make your case about Anthony Gordon if you were to bring him into the side.
I think one, he's a guy he can go both ways. He can play left wing, he can play right wing. He's quick, he's physical, he's got a bit of the horribleness to him. I think he's shown this year he can score goals. He's had performances against top players. He's had a good performance against Liverpool, good performance against City, and probably the oldest I've ever seen Kyle Walker look when he's on a pitch. He just could not handle him or Isak. I think one, English homegrown quota. And I think two, as we previously mentioned with Sir Alex Ferguson, you shouldn't care. Like, you actually shouldn't care. Like, Arsenal and Man United hated each other. Man United go, we're going to sign Van Persie. Oh, we're going to sign this guy. Arsenal signed Sol Campbell. Like, you shouldn't care. You should want... In my head, I'd love to go to Everton and sign Branthwaite and Onana and take the best players. I think that's what the best clubs do. You look at Bayern Munich and you go, how can Dortmund sell Matt Hummels to them? How can they sell Mario Götze? Because you want to be, like, top of the food chain. And I think moves like that just show that we're ruthless and we'll go after who we want, and we don't care if you've got like a previous attachment. And also, I think when we go and play Everton, I think it will just be hilarious if he scores for us against them, which would be worth signing him for however much money. That would be unbelievable. But I think he'd be a really good prospect for us.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I can't disagree that the limbs that had happened if he went and played in a Liverpool jersey in Goodison Park and scored a winner. I think that I maybe the transfer fee alone there for the banter will be hilarious. We have, where is it? North Red here saying Blues to Liverpool has worked before, even with the club in between that move, but not that much. Oh God, I think you're maybe fighting a losing battle here, Carter. Unfortunately, I'll throw it over to Brandon and Clem. Clem, I'll go to yourself first with Everton are 1-0 down. Corner here. No, it's gone over. I'm maybe a couple of seconds behind. Appreciate that, Tony. Ruining the score for me and ruining my joy. Clem, yourself first. Anthony Gordon, man. It's kind of like trying to invite Judas back to the Last Supper, so to speak, a little bit, isn't it? It's a weird one, because if you've seen him in a Liverpool jersey, you'd be like, oh, I don't know how to feel about this one.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an Edwards move. Maybe unlike some, I wouldn't be completely against it, because I think, like as Carter made some points, young. I think when players do come to Liverpool with the surrounding talent, their games can go to another level. But back to Lucho, I think, yeah, I won't be shocked if Lucho does get sold eventually. But I think the form he's in right now, I think he's 27 and right at his peak. I could see Lucho staying for another year or so. But it is concerning that his father does continue to make those quotes. But I am mindful as well that things can be, pushed along a little bit with the Spanish media, but he has to be smarter about also what he's saying too. But I also don't hold it against Lucho because, a family member making quotes, isn't always on your behalf. It's sometimes a case of, the father may want Lucho pushed to Spain more than Lucho does. I mean, we've all had parents that wanted something else for us that maybe we didn't want. So I think, I think it's going to be a big summer. I think there might be a bit more shake-up than people expect. Who knows what Edwards, he's going to want to come in, beating his chest, with, this new role. And, everyone does have a bit of an ego. He was headhunted to return. I can't see him just stepping in saying, "Oh, everything's perfect. I want to keep everything as is," like Klopp had. I think everyone's going to want to make their stamp.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting summer, as you mentioned. It is going to be. Oh God, I can't even think that far ahead. And there's 8 games left in the Premier League, and that's where my mind is at the moment. I can't even think of a new manager and what's going to happen in the summer and who's going to go. And oh God, it's the most It's Brandon. Realistically, it's the most unstable or the biggest time of instability that Liverpool have faced in nearly a decade. And it's quite a frightening prospect to look forward to this summer and not know what's going to happen.
Well, that's what I live for, man. I'm ready for the unknown. I'm ready to, get some instability back in my life. Get back to the early days, going second place with Luis Suarez and then bringing in Mario Balotelli. I want to go back to those days. Of course, I actually don't. It is scary to think we've been so stable, so well ran. Obviously we've had a couple issues, injuries, not buying the center mid last year before, when we all knew we really needed to cause fall off. But at the same time, just how stable the club is when you look around everybody else in the Premier League and how many issues every single team is facing, even like Arsenal, some people think are very well ran. They're even up against FFP issues. So it's been great, but at the same time, we're going to have to kind of get out of our comfort zone here. So like me, I'm not trying to think too much about the summer. I'm just trying to enjoy the last, we're looking like 13, 14 games overall with Europa League of Klopp, and then just kind of getting really dug in, ready for the summer.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting summer. Carter, Paul has a question here for you. I don't know how he thinks Isak and Leao are going to be the same money, but if I'm assuming, Paul, is what you mean is if you had to spend the same money on either one of them, which one are you taking, assuming that Lucho is sold? So Carter, out of the two of them, seeing as we're discussing Anthony Gordon and possibly a replacement on that left-hand wing, Isak or Rafael Leao instead if Lucho is sold?
Leao, I honestly, there's not very many players I would pick over Leao. I'm okay. I'm gonna show my youth here. I've only seen Thierry Henry play for Arsenal when he came back from New York Red Bulls. So, but when you see like clips of him on Twitter and you see highlights of Henry, I do look at Leao and go, I think they're both huge. They both are so easy to like open it up and put it in the top corner. They just seem to like drag their teams. They're so athletically excellent. Like for me, I think Isaac's good, but I think he's like the C version of Henry and Leao, where I think Leao has like all the potential in the world. I think if he came now, he'd probably maybe take a year or two, but I think he'd easily be in that Van Dijk, Salah bracket as like our top player, maybe one of the best players in the world, top 5 or 6, Ballon d'Or podium. So I think if it's between those two, I don't even think it's a discussion, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd be in the same camp as that. I'd take Rafael Leao is just he's probably one of the best prospects that'll be coming out of Italy in quite a long time. And Paul mentions here Rafael Leao or Rodrigo. I take Leao again, in my own opinion. That's the way I'd go. But we will move on to our next topic. And before we do, I just want to ask everybody to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and make sure that you have your notification bell on for all future streams and videos. With the release clause that we've mentioned with Ruben Amorim, it's 30 million to stay in Portugal if he was to move to a different Portuguese side, or it's 20 million or less for teams outside of Portugal. Given the fact that he seems to be lauded over as this next what's the word I'm looking for? This next big Portuguese manager, considering the last one did fairly well in the Premier League, Mr. Special One himself. I'm very curious to find out everybody's thoughts on him, as brutally honest as we can be, because I don't think we've ever really discussed like his tactics, his lineups, the people that he has with the team and whatnot. So, Clem, I'll throw it over to yourself first of your opinion on Ruben Amorim as a manager, tactician, and what he's done in the Portuguese league currently at the moment with Sporting, because he has achieved quite a lot considering.
Yeah, no doubt. I think there's a few things going for him. You know, the repeated talk is his communication skills seem to be not great, but elite, they say. You know, as Dan just put more praise in the chat, some articles coming out. He almost always says the right thing, apparently in quotation marks. One thing that can't be understated is how much Klopp is respected by the current players and future players, obviously, as well. You know, anyone who came in because they you know, they were excited to work with Klopp. So I think a guy with charisma like Amorim, he's young, he was a former player. I love that connection to the Portuguese, you know, the South American market as well, because I mean, we're always going to continue to have South American players. You know, as we're going to talk about with the Benfica ties as well, you know, things are just aligning for me. I'll be so disappointed if it's not Amorim. Now I've talked myself into it, you know, even more now. Tactically, I haven't watched a lot of football from Sporting, but I did catch their game last week, and they're about to play today in the first of two big games against Benfica. They look so fluid in attack. They're very patient in the setup. I like as well. So yeah, I really think that the technical ability is a big tick, and the communication is a big tick, which is great. You know, and there's always going to be a risk, as we've always mentioned. You know, when Klopp came in, I'm sure there are some skeptics as well. You know, success didn't exactly come immediately. So I think Amorim, you know, whilst he's achieved quite a bit already, I think he can be that next big star manager.
Yeah, I think so too. He's everything there for the taking, and obviously North Red here mentions the Prem's a whole different world. Firstly, the press, who, let's face it, will be jumping all over him, hoping he fails. Like Brandon, anybody that comes in, as much as we don't want to admit it, as much as we don't want to say that they won't have difficulty, they're obviously going to face a bit of turmoil when they first arrive. First of all, they are replacing Klopp. Let's not avoid the elephant in the room here. They are going to be replacing Klopp. They will have a mammoth task at their hand of working with this team. But at the end of the day, the manager that comes in should be backed, and that, like, realistically, I myself am not expecting a Premier League win next season under a new manager. What would your expectations be with a new manager? Blank name, blank face, but with a new manager coming in, what would your expectations be?
Expectations would kind of with you, like, don't want to put the world on him, like, oh, we got to be chasing a quad again next year, or, you know, like how we have the past couple or 2 out of the last 3 years. We just need basically want to see his philosophy, seeing growth in like kind of younger players or players that still have room to grow, seeing those players kind of thrive in a system, and making hard decisions. Like, you know, we're starting to get a few players that are hitting that 29, 30-year-old range. Maybe they're falling off or had injury issues. That one of the issues I've always kind of had with Klopp over the years, and it's a minor issue really, is that he's not very ruthless when it comes to his team. Like we've kept on for years that needed to go. Like you can talk about, I've always said that if James Milner wasn't moving directly into coaching after Liverpool, there was no reason to keep him for the last, I think, two seasons that we had him.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, as much as I love James Milner, but there was no reason to keep him for a couple of years. I always kind of wanted Klopp to be a little bit more ruthless with the team. I think that's kind of where the friction between him and Edwards came. So, I mean, I kind of want to have a manager that's going to be very realistic with the squad, work within the structure very well, which is kind of why Edwards is back to kind of make those decisions slightly for him. So that's what I kind of want. I want to see a manager putting in his philosophy and watching the players grow within that philosophy and seeing like kind of a growth within the squad and kind of everybody buying in on it. I mean, I know that's a lot to ask for a team as big as Liverpool when, I wouldn't be surprised after we lost to United, whether there was some people say, get rid of Klopp now, he's done, get rid of him now, instead of waiting until the end of the year, because we're very reactionary as a fan base. Just have to have everybody buy in on him.
Yeah, and we're not reactionary at all. We're the most level-headed, calm, reasonable fan base that you'll ever find around. No knee-jerk reactions or emotional reactions from us. Carter, I'll throw the same question to yourself. With the doesn't matter who it is, but blank face, blank manager, blank name. Next season, what would be your expectations? Would you expect similar results, maybe a step back, like we are going to essentially nearly be in without a disastrous collapse for the remainder of the season? We'll probably get Champions League football to finish this season. So it'll be, instead of coming in and getting Europa, Champions League light to grow into the squad, they're kind of going to be thrown into the fire a little bit here. So given that, what would your expectations of the new manager be next season?
For me, to be honest, I've gone in, I've watched loads of YouTube, like I've watched every single Ruben Amorim video of his tactics, of what he's about, and I've just sat down and watched. And I think for me, it needs to be that maybe he isn't too stubborn. Like a lot of what I've seen is the press is like almost over the top, but he can get away with that in Portugal because of the lack of quality of like other players on like the weaker teams. But in the Prem, and that's partially maybe why what people kind of said he lost to Atalanta, because the press was a bit over aggressive and it leaves the defense exposed. But for me, I think as long as we go in, we see a plan, we see a style of play. Like I think Man United's issue is 1 week Man United play like a basketball game, 1 week they play like this. As long as we can go, this is how we're trying to play. The players need a year to learn it, because in like terms of setup, it's going to be different to Klopp, especially if it's 3 or 5 at the back. So I think like coherent style, like coherent plan every game, and just as long as he's not a knob as well, like as long as we can get behind him. Like you don't want managers who come in like, who was the one who ended up at, sorry for the language, who was the guy who ended up at at Southampton with the guy who went to Southampton last year, he was the manager of Luton, who just started throwing Southampton players under the bus. I think they were asking for him to be sacked after 3 games. So I think all that kind of positive stuff, I'm just really excited for it. Like I think I've kind of looked at it as like, people kind of say Amorim maximizes players and maximizes his team, but guys like, and that's what Klopp does, whereas like guys like Pep and Arteta will nullify the other team at the expense of maximizing their players. So I think for all of us, even if sometimes there might be 1 or 2 games we get smashed 4-0 or something maybe, but I think there will be games where we go to Man City and we go to Arsenal and we play them off the park like we did this year. So I'm just excited.
No, I am too. I exactly am too. And to answer Paul's question about Amorim being married to the back 3, I'm fine with that. I don't see any issue with that. If Brandon, Clem, or Carter, you have an issue with that, that's like pipe up, like. But I particularly don't. It's one of those that Alonso's playing with a back 3 and he's yet to lose a game. I understand that it's 2 different managers, but you can clearly watch what Alonso's doing and copy it and get the players and the profile. It's a copycat league is what we're currently in at the moment. You have Arteta and Pep that are quite literally circle jerking each other after that City and Arsenal game on Sunday. They were loving it because they're like, oh, this is just tactical genius. When realistically, Arsenal just laid over and let City have their way with them. And the City just couldn't score. Haaland missed sitters and he could have won that game for City. But yeah, no, I have no problem getting married to that back three idea. And as you mentioned, Paul, we need a left-footed centre back. And sure, isn't it absolutely perfect that they have a left-sided centre back at Sporting that has a bit of a release clause and could very easily come over and play for Liverpool. And I'm pretty sure I would absolutely, you know what, I can't say that because this stream will get banned. I'm in love with Gonzalo Inacio, and I have been for the last year. And anybody that's been watching for the past while knows that I'm absolutely mad for him. And if he came along with Amorim, nothing to worry about. Absolutely nothing to worry about. But we are going to move on to our next topic now. And just before we do that, please make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure you have your notification bell on for all future videos and streams so that you never miss out. We will be live later on again tonight with our Stars, Stripes and Anfield night stream. Brandon unfortunately won't be able to join us for that stream. However, we will have plenty of other people about for that. But that's why Brandon's on with us now, so he doesn't miss out, and you don't have to miss his beautiful face on stream on a Tuesday for once. But with the rumours of Ruben Amorim, it's absolutely fantastic that Liverpool have gone and poached the Benfica technical director, which is, oh God, her name has escaped me now. Where is his name? Pedro Marques, who quite literally, as somebody so eloquently put it, I think it was Jay in the chat so eloquently put it, the man buys kebabs and sells them for £100 million, and he is apparently just so lauded over his scouting and his ability to find such talent and be able to develop such talent. And now he's been hired by FSG, not Liverpool specifically. So it will more be about identifying young talent for Liverpool and the newer club that's purchased, hopefully over the next couple of months. But Brandon, I'll go over to yourself first with this disappointment of Pedro Marques as a new sort of senior technical director of football kind of a role, where he's overseeing the youth development and signing development. What do you think about him as a signing, given the amount of people that have come out of Benfica, Darwin Núñez being one of them, along with the two CDMs that they have at the moment with João Neves, Florentino Luis, and they have an absolute plethora of talent over there currently at the moment under his watch.
Yeah, should be highly exciting for anybody following Liverpool, FSG, or whatever you're into here, because just the track record alone, like all the players you've already mentioned, a few of them, and there's even more over the years that we didn't get or not there anymore. Remember, like Fabio Vieira, he's over at Arsenal. I mean, it's just like every year it seems like Benfica is selling somebody they bought for 10 million, for 90 million. It's just nonstop churning out talent, nonstop churning out profit as well, which is key in the modern game, that you have to be making profit off players. You can't just be buying everybody at 100 million, selling them for 20 million, or you're going to be not lasting very long. So, I mean, This is absolutely a great signing. I'm trying to think. I mean, they just went and got a player I really liked, Marcos Leonardo. I don't know if he fits at Liverpool, but that's a player I've really liked, but out of Brazil. And if it opens up more pathways when we get a second club, whether it's in Portugal, Brazil, wherever it's at, that, somebody with this level of scouting ability or ability to develop everybody is just so key to have within the structure of FSG.
Yeah, Carter, it's one of them that's secretly a very good signing, especially that we seem to be developing quite the talented backroom staff for this new manager to come in, almost to the point where the new manager is quite literally just going to have to come in, hand them a sheet of paper with the player profiles that he wants, and just coach the team. That seems to be what we're going for at the moment. And I'm really not mad at it, to be perfectly honest. What are your thoughts on that sort of a philosophy coming into the club now, rather than the manager having all-seeing, all-powerful control over the transfers?
I think it's interesting. Personally, I'm just going to say before we go into it, not a fan of the two-club model. I think it's very unethical. I'm not keen on us doing it. I've had a deep thought about it. But I think for the manager, I think it's good. I think it's a good pathway, to get young talents, as Brandon said, like Marcos Leonardo. I think every 3, 4, 5 months you see on Liverpool Twitter, they're interested in the new Luis Suarez at Santos. So I think for guys like that, it's just it makes a lot of sense. But I just think I'm happy if he was more part of the team. But I think as Liverpool, as a club that's sort of supposed to be for the people and have strong social values, I'm not I'm not super keen on like what's coming. I think for me, as like some people are FSG out, and we know who's FSG out. For me, this is a bigger negative than them running the club like efficiently. Like I'm just not super. Yeah, I'm just a bit disappointed that we're going this way. I think it's a bit soulless. Like this is a Man City thing. I don't want to be like Man City. I want to be like Liverpool.
Okay, but so here's the question for you though: if we were to purchase a second club, but I understand where you're coming from, and I made this point as well, and Clem, we'll get your thoughts on it as well in a moment. But I had the same thoughts as well. As I don't want us to buy another club and gut them, because that would be very soulless, as you mentioned. I'd love for us to buy a team like I'll use Toulouse for example, because Toulouse were linked with ourselves. I'd love to buy a team such as Toulouse and act and just use them in a way of pumping money into them, helping them progress in Liga, and also allowing our players to go to them and if it's hard to describe, because I think it has pros and cons, and the only thing that I would be worried about is, as you mentioned, the ethics of it, because I don't want to be a Man City where it looks like there's dodgy deals going on left, right, and center, because that's one thing that we can hold ourselves high about for the past decade, if not longer, that we haven't been involved in any dodgy deals whatsoever. There's been no realm of iffiness about any of the deals that Liverpool have done. It's always been in good faith. We've always operated in good faith. Nobody seems to have a problem in dealing with us, whereas you have the likes of Man City who are signing players from the likes of Girona and other French teams that they have. Girona not being French, obviously, but signing other players from like French team. What was the name of the player that they just the smaller team signed them, and then City
I think Savio's on loan from Troyes to Genoa, and they bought him for like £25 million, which probably isn't fair value for Troyes.
Yeah, no, that's what Troyes is the team I'm thinking of, and Troyes absolutely hate the fact that they're owned by City because they're just a puppet of them, and they're used as a farming system. That's something I myself don't want, and I completely agree with you on that. And that's obviously something we need to be careful of. But something that is a place that I'd actually love for us to purchase a team, and I think Brandon might be able to back me up on this as well, is an MLS team. Because if we went and purchased an MLS team, it opens us up. First of all, we ethically, in that sense, we're not necessarily stunting them in a European league or anything like that. And the US market alone is a massively untapped market in relation to college athletes, in relation to the South American market, the Latino market. There's so many talented players that could come from that. And Brandon, feel free to chime in if you think I'm saying anything stupid here about this law, but I genuinely think that having access to that college market alone is license enough to, because then that, but see, I don't think people realize the size of college sports in America. It is a multi-trillion-dollar business that churns out young stars consistently. And if you have the good likes of track stars, and you hear Americans going on, oh, if we had our best athletes playing football or soccer, we'd be winning the World Cup every year, every 4 years. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, let's maybe put that to the test a little bit here with trying to recruit these unbelievably good star athletes and 5-star athletes and 2 or 3 sport athletes that'll be playing football, basketball, and baseball, but they'd only go into baseball, for example, purely for the money side of it, or basketball for the money side of it. And then you can turn around and be like, look, if you like football, you can come and play for our MLS team and maybe get a shot at coming over and playing for Liverpool as well. And like that would entice anybody that has any sort of an inkling of playing in soccer. But that's just my theory on it. Clem, I'll throw it over to yourself before I go to Brandon about the American market side of things for the second club. Clem, Carter makes an awful lot of good points with the ethics of it and how we would operate the second club. How would we treat them? Because if we were in their shoes being bought by a much bigger club, and we have to say we are very privileged to be such a big club, but if we were being bought by another club that was bigger than us, we'd have such fear that all of our star players are going to get gutted. We're just going to be used as a farming system. We're going to be thrown away as spare parts. What do you think would need to be done by FSG in order to alleviate worries such as that for fans of Liverpool like Carter and myself, and for fans of the team that we end up purchasing?
Yeah, I really understand what Carter's saying, and to fill you guys in, my local team, the Derby rival in my city, is actually owned by the City Group, Melbourne City FC, as part of the New York City, Manchester City Group.
Yeah.
And when they took over about 10 years ago, the soul of that club kind of changed. But I do think it can work. I think there's a right way you've got to do it. It just depends on what type of club it is, how big it is, what is the goal? Is it a farming league? Is it a farming club? But you should always give it a chance to win and be commercially viable and successful. It shouldn't just be there as as simply a farming system to help the bigger club.
Yeah.
Because then the fans of that smaller club are just going to turn away. There's going to be no incentive for them to root for that club and turn up, every week. So look, I'm really, excited about it, but I'm still a bit cautious about which league it's going to be. I really feel like this is the first step to them owning multiple clubs, because let's face it, guys, you don't just buy one club, I think, to stop there. I think once you venture into the multi-club model, if it works out after one, they'll be looking at another. And we've talked in our group chat. I think, the MLS could be good in terms of being very competitive in that league still, but also being able to identify a good player that is ready to make a big move. But I also think maybe a Bundesliga 2, Eredivisie club, Belgium club, or a France league, Portuguese league could work well as well if they're really competitive, but maybe a lower down club.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's a couple of things that have been mentioned here, like you just see, like Paul mentioning here about looking at the J League in Japan, great players with great technical ability. I mean, look at Wataru Endo. And then we also have mentioned in here, like, feeder clubs are going to be the norm with player prices getting unattainable. And I completely agree with that as well. We have a couple of things here. Paul obviously messing about saying, well, we stole Gakpo from Man United. We've stolen a lot of players from Man United. Let's be perfectly honest at this point. Some of the American players that are already in some of the big European leagues, and I say big, in Serie B, there's with Venezia or Venice, there's a particular American midfielder. I can't remember his name for the life of me. Brandon might be able to correct me on it.
Tanner Tessman?
He's one of them, but there's two of them. Bucio is another one, I think. Yeah, absolutely astonishingly technically good players, and it's amazing to watch them, even though they're in the second division in an Italian league. They're nuts, and they're only early 20s. Like, they're astonishingly good players. Like I mentioned in here that Man City is an MLS team as well. Like, it's Brandon, the MLS market in itself, like you know better than most, because obviously you go and you see some of the Colorado games, and you see a number of other Columbus. Excuse me. I do forget that you're in Ohio. It's a bad state of it. I'm sorry for your loss, but it is a very much untapped market, and I'm sure even you growing up would have known kids that would have played football or soccer over there, but then would have been tempted by the other three major sports in baseball, NFL, and basketball, and they would have been turned away from football. But realistically, if there was an avenue for them to come and play in one of the best leagues in the world, albeit similarly to the baseball and how they work with the minor league teams, how you could come through college, go to an MLS team, and then all of a sudden get a call up to Liverpool, it would probably incentivize them a little bit more to have that avenue to the European markets and more money that way. Because realistically, money is what drives a lot of players to the likes of basketball and baseball.
Yeah, I think baseball and soccer or footy would be kind of the similar kind of thing to look at when it comes to college. Usually the players who go to college for baseball or soccer, however you want to call it, typically are very raw, so they're not quite ready for that type of professional structure. They just need to kind of see if they're going to actually develop in the right way. So usually the college market is a little different here in the United States. I think the biggest issue with, say, if Liverpool came in for Columbus here, is how the MLS works with player deals.
Yeah.
Like, there's a player in Sacramento. I think he's 13 years old and he's already playing professional football, and he won't move to a MLS team, because if they big team, say like Dortmund or whoever, came in and bought him for 20 million. If he was in the MLS gets a cut of that money because he came through the MLS.
Oh,
So since Sacramento is not in the MLS system, Sacramento would get the entirety of the 20 million. So that's one of the issues with the MLS. They have ways around that with like pro academies, MLS Next, stuff like that. There's little ways around it. I know we sold Zach Steffen to City 8-9 years ago, whatever it was now, and I think it was like $6 million at the end of the day of a $9 million deal. So
yeah.
there's some issues with the MLS and just how it's set up and structured. It is an untapped market. There's players that are really good with Columbus right now. I mean, a couple weeks ago, Patrick Schulte, the goalkeeper, there was like very weak links, but they were linked like Arsenal, Man United, maybe coming in for him in the summer, which would disgust me. I would disown him. But, there's other players like Aid Morris. There's been players from Columbus. There's a lot of really good young players, mostly coming out of the South America bracket. Thiago I think, will be playing for a really big club really soon. He plays for Atlanta. I know one point Messi said he's the next me at he was younger. So Jesus. I think the MLS is a really untapped market. It's definitely grown, especially in the last like 3 or 4 years. The growth of the league has been astronomical leading up to the World Cup. I think just the biggest hurdle, if you want to look at an MLS team, is the actual MLS structure itself, or the MLS corporate everything.
Yeah, similarly to Roger Goodell in the NFL, like it's a business rather than a sports league in many respects, and money talks in it. But I genuinely think that there's a massively untapped market there, and it even, as Helier mentions here, with Portuguese clubs having a gateway to South America and Central America, that's essentially what the US has as well, especially with the ream of talent that would come up, especially from the Caribbean countries. Especially for baseball, like people that will be coming up from Puerto Rico, and they could be massively raw athletes, but could still end up doing some business as footballers. But before we move on to our last topic this evening, which would be an actual defender, and not a defender, a midfielder winger combo from a Brazilian club, I just want to ask everybody to make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and make sure you have your notification bell on for all future videos and streams so that you never miss out. We will be live later on again this evening with Star Stripes and Anfield Nights. It'll be on at 2 a.m. UK time or 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you stick around for that. Paul mentioned in here about looking at the J League in Japan, great players with technical ability, far better than the MLS. I think it's more. I don't disagree with you, Paul, that it may be better as it is right now, but I think it's more. There seems to be absolutely overflowing talent coming out of the South American market right now, and I think you need to be able to have the fastest track from there to here. And I think either Portugal or an MLS team with access to college athletes and the ability to scout college athletes would maybe be your best way forward. That's just my own personal opinion on it. But in saying scouting South American talent, we do have a player here that we're going to have a look at, and that is Luis Guilherme. Is that how you pronounce it? Guil? Yeah, Guilherme. He's an 18-year-old who plays for Palmeiras, and he's sort of touted as this left-footed number 10, can also play on the outside, maybe will be like a possible Mo Salah understudy replacement kind of a player. And when you look at his statistics, and I'm going to bring them up here now. 1 second now, I'm going to bring them up. So we're going to just have a quick look down through his current statistics as it is. So I'm going to share the screen here now, and we'll get a look. So here we go, bit of show and tell. We do love it on a Tuesday evening. 1 second now, we're going to share here, and then I'm going to come back in here, and we're going to get rid of this brand because now that looks hilariously ugly. So looking at this here, I'll get rid of that ad now as well because we don't need any copyright strikes. So this is just a quick overview of his statistics here. Obviously he's 91 percentile of shot creating actions and a hilariously good dribbler in the Brazilian league currently at the moment with a 98th percentile and 96th percentile here respectively. But something that isn't really looked at an awful lot is both his interceptions and his aerials won. Now, his aerials won, he's in the top 70%. The kid's only 5'9", and he's winning aerials consistently. Now, will that number drop when he comes to the Premier League? Perhaps. But when you go down through the statistics here, you're like, okay, yeah, progressive carries are fine. This is the one that really jumped out to me that I thought would really sort of benefit. Like, you have your crosses here. He's very much a playmaker. Lots of passing percentages here up very high. But then you get to, where is it now that I'm looking at? His goal scoring as well is it's hilariously nuts. Like, but here is where I wanted to focus: tackles in the attacking third and interceptions. That speaks to me like somebody who's an absolute pressing monster. Somebody that is in the 95th percentile of tackles in the final third and is that high on their interceptions as well. Realistically, for a pressing style of a player, Clem, this is the kind of man that you'd want. You'd want somebody that's in this level of a statistical anomaly. For a guy who's 5'9", seems to be very good in the air, can get a foot in on a tackle, and seems to be ridiculous at anticipating passes and getting interceptions. For a number 10 or a winger, my God, that's like having a centre back up there that can also score for you.
Yeah, it sounds like a dream. And for the price, like I don't know. I'm assuming there's every club around the world interested. I'd love to beat out the bigger clubs, for talent like this, and as we just discussed about, a feeder club or a second club, it would be a pathway for a talent like this to a bigger league, but without having to make the jump to the biggest league,
Yeah.
And I think that would be the underrated advantage to FSG having a second club, is to give an opportunity for other players to get a run as well. It's not just trying to cut the middleman out and get the best talent as quick as possible. It's being able to develop them and give them run in a bigger league, but without jumping all the way to the deep end, because you just never know. For every star talent that works out, there's a cautionary tale, and they have to take a step backwards sometimes as well. I'm interested to see how Endrick does, but in terms of Brazil, I mean, we should be definitely trying to get this guy and try to find these guys for this price. Remains to be seen how much more ambitious FSG are with spending. With Edwards here, I'll be curious to hear your thoughts in the chat about how aggressive do you think we've made all these signings and guys to best identify talent, but how aggressive do you think? Do you see anything changing with us spending a little bit more?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Let us know in the comments what you think about that, and I'll throw it over to yourself as well, Carter, on this of Clem's point of, do we be more aggressive with our spending going forward? We have obviously Luis Guilherme is sort of touted as about, we'll have to pay at minimum about £40 million for him. Do you think that's worth it, or do you think that we keep somewhat of the same spending model that we have, or should we get more aggressive going forward? And I'll just take this guy off now.
I think it's difficult. I think because when you look at someone like him, although someone like Amorim maybe plays with more like 210s, because we've got to think it's got to fit the potential new manager. I do fear for some of the younger lads now, but I feel like this is part of the process. Like, you make 5 good players and you sell them on for like the top superstar. And if we think he's that good, then go for it. Like, I think if I have enough trust in Edwards, enough trust in Hughes, so when they go and spend a big amount of money, like Hughes did, is it Alex Scott? Alex Scott looks unbelievable, really good player, top player in the championship. They've both got track records of when they go expensive, most of the time it has actually worked out. Like, not every transfer, especially when your Bournemouth is. But I think we'll see us a lot more aggressive. I think without Klopp being there to stop people being moved on, I think there'll be a lot more like let's say with Estavio, with Lewis Galumphry now, Klopp might have said, I have Ben Doak, I have Cade Gordon, like, we similar profile of player, don't need him. Whereas I feel like Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes will go, well, we actually think this guy's going to be 10 times the player Ben Doak is. So Ben Doak's going to have to go out on loan and he'll come in and be in the first team. So I definitely think we'll be much more aggressive, ruthless. And as much as people will hate to see it, I think a lot of the young lads who look really promising might not last and stay at the club as long as they think.
No, I completely agree. Like we're going on about these Brazilian talents, and Brandon Paul mentions here Andre still available there for 20 to 25 million. Could we go get him as a Thiago replacement, or do you think that ship is completely sailed? And Jamie Hughes, we'll get on to this topic in a moment because it was a very beautiful moment, and I'll touch on it in a moment considering he's an Irish native of mine as well. But Brandon, back on to Andre. Has that ship sailed for you, or is it possibly something we revisit in the summertime? Because for me, I think it's sailed. We've like Helier mentions, then we'll have Bajcetic back soon as well. Why bother replacing something that we already have a replacement for?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I feel like the Andre ship has sailed. Endo's came in and done the job. And the need for it is not quite what it was when we got to the end of the summer window. I like Andre as a player. If the money gets right, do the deal. But I mean, it's just not something that we should have to pursue or go chase. It's something that's just kind of fall into our laps. Like, hey, or, maybe we get a bad injury in the preseason and like we might need somebody else. Andre's still sitting there. Go grab him. That could be a possibility. With Guilherme, I like kind of what Carter's saying there about building up or being more ruthless with the team. It may not be so much ruthless at the age profile of 18. It's just like kind of, hey, not a lot of young players are able to make the step up. The more you have, the more likely they are to make that step up to the big time competition. So, I mean, you add, if Cade Gordon gets back on track, if Ben Doak comes back from his injury strong and you have Guilherme, you have a lot of talent right there that, even if one of them doesn't make it, you're making a lot of money when you get rid of him.
Yeah, it is like that. It's interesting. Like there's so much going on at the moment. Like, Jim, my head is absolutely fried just from trying to think of, first of all, okay, well, who are we going to possibly sign? Who are we linked with? Okay, but we don't have a manager yet. But we've the lads in the backroom staff that probably know who the manager is going to be. Okay, well then if they know who the manager is going to be, then we definitely could heed some of the links that are coming out. And then it's just at the moment of thoughts going around in my head. But I want to go back to Jamie Hughes' point here of mentioning about Klopp and Sean Cox on Sunday. And for those of you who don't know who Sean Cox is an Irish native from County Meath, which is only a little bit up the road from where I am, about an hour away from where I am. He was in Anfield in 2018, where a horrific thing happened to both him and his brother Martin, where they were attacked by rival fans dressed in all black outside of the stadium after the game where Liverpool played a Champions League match against Roma at the time. He was left completely fucked, for lack of a better term, and excuse my language. He suffered significant head injuries, and he spent a week in Aintree Hospital after having to have an emergency surgery. And it's his first time back over at Anfield since, and it's his last time seeing Jurgen Klopp. And ever since his wife, Martina, wrote out a book and released it a couple of years ago, Klopp has sort of kept in touch with the family and held a real interest in him. And he wanted to see him before he ended up going away, Klopp, that is. And the only sort of time that really fit both of them was Sunday, where Liverpool beat Brighton 2-1. And there was, I don't know if anybody's seen it, but there was just a beautiful embrace between the two of them. And I think personally, first of all, as an Irishman, seeing how he greeted the young Dara as well, the young disabled boy that was brought over and was bawling his eyes out at "You'll Never Walk Alone." We've all been there. I'm going to be there in 2 weeks' time, bawling my eyes out at the Crystal Palace match. You can bet your bollocks that'll probably be on Twitter of me bawling my eyes out, so be prepared for that. But I think it just speaks volumes of the man himself and the legacy that he's going to leave at Liverpool. And I'll just throw it around to all three of you guys again, because as we said earlier, we're not going to be able to replace a man like Klopp. Like, Clem, I'm not sure if you were aware of the significance of that and everything that was going on, but really that just speaks a testament to the man that is Klopp in itself.
Yeah, everything you said just isn't surprising to me. I feel like Liverpool has always been a family club, and we're always connected. You never walk alone. But Klopp coming in, from a manager outside, I felt like he just got it from day one. He understood, and he's wore so many hats. He's not just the manager of Liverpool. He's looked upon as a father figure for the players, for many fans. And I mean, how many fans of big clubs around the world have actually cried when their manager announced that they were leaving? And then there's going to be more tears shed when we're on the parade. And then there's going to be more tears shed when we're watching that documentary as well. But Thanks for sharing that about the Sean Cox, because I wasn't aware. I did see it on social media, but I didn't know what happened in 2018 against Roma. And yeah, my heart just sank as you were describing. But look, I'm just glad that they're able to have that moment with Jurgen.
Yeah, it's one of them that's just absolutely heartbreaking. Like Carter, as you mentioned, you're a younger fan, so to speak, that you've only seen on replay at Arsenal after he came back from New York. But like, what a privilege for you as well at the same time to have a manager such as Jurgen Klopp to be able to look up to. And as Clem has mentioned, in many cases is sort of like a pseudo father figure to an awful lot of us, myself included, and I'm nearly 30 years old. It's the day he announced that he was leaving, the phone lit up and there was just messages with just lads. And I looked at Twitter and I was like, nah, fuck this. This is April Fool's is in a couple of months, lad. This you're having me on here. And my girlfriend came home from work and asked me, are you okay? And I just was pale. I don't think, Carter, you can realistically picture another manager or even player at that level that's really touched the hearts, souls, and minds of an entire global fan base, realistically. And it just speaks it just speaks to the legacy that Jurgen Klopp is leaving behind.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think a big thing for me that I really, really like about Liverpool and Klopp is, I don't know about you guys, I think the behind the match things are good, but I like when they go into the community and they do things and you can see how much of like a large like impact they can have. Like I think Van Dijk met two people who played Sunday League in Liverpool, and someone had a cardiac arrest, and he did a whole push for defibrillators to be in every pitch in Liverpool.
Yeah.
So I think stuff like that the club does, that's what I mean. I don't want to be Man City. I want to be Liverpool. And I think, as you said, with the Sean Cox thing, I remember I just think like that could be me. Like that could be me and my dad going to a game. That could be anyone. And it's obviously like very upsetting. And that's why kind of in a sense, I don't know if they will put it in, but I feel like if that sort of is part of the documentary, like if they almost like, because that's a big part of like Klopp's journey, that sort of thing. That's a major thing that's happened during his reign. So it'd be interesting to see if maybe there's like, oh, this happens, and they go into it and they explain it, because it is, of the last few years, it's an important thing, because there's been some horrible things, like people say horrible stuff about maybe the family on Twitter, like who are just vicious trolls, like how people say like things about food banks and stuff. So I think it's just so good how we come together and they do so much work in the community.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that. It is. It's Brandon. It's a family, and it's a global family, as we've seen. We've myself here in Ireland. We've Carter in the UK. We've Clem all the way over in Australia. We have yourself over in the US in Columbus. Like, there is not a blade of grass on this planet that is untouched by the reach of a club such as Liverpool. And United are the same, and Arsenal are the same, and all these big clubs. But when it comes down to it, it is quite wholesome and really enheartening. Like Hellier mentions here is that when he wanted to stand up from his wheelchair, when he shook Klopp's hand, like you could see him struggling trying to do it. And it really brought a tear to my eye, to be perfectly honest with you. And that watching, I watched it with my girlfriend, the Dara sitting in the stands and crying, listening to You'll Never Walk Alone. And she got emotional. And then I watched the part where Dara came over and he met Klopp and he met Salah and Diaz and Nunez and everybody. And you could see how much it meant to this young kid. And my girlfriend, who's not into sports at all, in any way, shape, or form, was like, Jesus, okay, I can see now why you were so upset with this man leaving. This man clearly holds a heavy place in an awful lot of Liverpool fans' hearts. And I'm sure yourself as well.
Yeah. I lost my father the year after Klopp came, and he's been so immense in filling that kind of void that losing a parent kind of can. It's always been like so wonderful to watch Klopp, because he always seems like he says the right thing, not just about football, but just about anything going on, like his like impassioned things during like the pandemic as that was leading up. Like he just always feels like people were before football. And I think we get lost in that quite a bit, the sport, winning. The fact that we've done this like with such a wonderful person, like is just been over the moon. Yeah, it's just I remember watching. I'm trying to think. I think it was a guy from West Africa going to like Anfield, like talking about like the global reach of the club, and like he walked through like the tunnel to come up to actually see Anfield for the first time, and he broke, and he just like broke down in tears. I'm like, that will be me one day when I get to the UK, just like walking into the place that means so much to me, though I've never actually touched the blade of grass at Anfield. It just would be overwhelming. I think I went to Nashville this past weekend for a game, and I watched a game at a Liverpool bar there. There's like 40 people at a bar at 8 o'clock in the morning in Nashville cheering on the Reds. They have this massive mural of like all the European cups. Like, it's just the family aspect of this club is just so immense worldwide, and just like Klopp has really been able to reconnect everything to the community, to the club, to the world, to the fans. It's always felt like the fans became first, team came second, even though that was never the case. It always felt that way.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, and it's just like I feel incredibly privileged myself, and I don't want to brag about it either, but I'm very excited about going over the game in 2 weeks' time. And obviously, this is my first game in 15 years. The last time I was there was when Liverpool played Arsenal, and Andre Arshavin scored 4 at Anfield, which was never done before by somebody else. That was the last game I was at. And it became so difficult to get tickets, and I was just never able to go over. And then now I have the chance to go over, and you can bet your arse my voice is going to be gone, and I will be crying like a damn baby. But on that very emotional ending to this, and how Klopp means to an awful lot of us, I want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. I want to thank Jane as well for her £9.99. Always an absolute star that she is. It's very much appreciated, and also being a member for 19 months, it is really appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please do make sure to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel massively. And also on top of that, if you have done that, please make sure to have your notification bell on for all future streams and videos. We will be live later on this evening for Stars, Stripes and Anfield Nights, and we will hopefully have a good few gaggle of us on. What food is a must? Guinness. That's your food. That's liquid diet for the entire time that you're there is Guinness. If you're over in Dublin, do let me know, and I'll come up and I'll point you out to a few good spots. There's a lot of nice spots in Dublin. It's very big. Realistically, steaks. But if you want proper traditional Irish food, it'll probably be an Irish stew or just Guinness. Usually Guinness stew is probably the best thing to have. And if anybody has ever had it, oh boy, it's unreal. You basically just cook a load of meat into a pot and slow cook it for a few hours and throw 2 cans of Guinness in on top of it and let it slow cook, and it all just melts apart. It's unreal. Anyways, enough about me and my paddiness. Thank you guys so much for joining us. From myself, Brandon, Clem, and Carter, we really appreciate all of you. We hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day wherever they are in the world, and you'll never walk alone.